One of the world's largest automakers has halted construction of an electric vehicle battery plant in Windsor, Ontario. The new Stellantis plant is expected to create around 2,500 jobs. Last year, the federal government pledged $500 million to the project, but now the automaker is saying the government has not delivered on its promise. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford had this message today for the federal government.
They need to step up and commit to the promise they gave to the people of Windsor. It's as simple as that.
Lana Payne is the national president of Unifor. Lana, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
I kind of jolted when I saw the alert that Stellantis has halted construction. How worried are you by this development?
Well, we got wind that this was going to happen on Friday of last week. We had a call from the company. So at that point, I have to say my stomach fell a little bit. This is a pretty serious move by Stellantis, and very much so a concern for us, given the number of people that we represent in the Stellantis footprint in Canada. And the battery plant is at the epicenter of what is the EV future and the EV plan for Stellantis. And of course, we have members in a number of OEMs or assembly plants that would need these batteries for their future plans. So this is concerning, no doubt about it.
How do you interpret what Stellantis is looking for here? Is this simply as simple as giving them the same deal that Volkswagen got in St. Thomas?
My understanding is that they had already been starting talking with the government long before VW, and that they had reached an understanding as far back as February, and so this would predate the VW announcement. The fact of the matter is that both Stellantis and LG, on the company side, and the federal government have made a commitment here. They made a very clear commitment to the workers of Canada, to the community of Windsor, that they would build and support the building of this battery plant. And it became so important to the whole kind of EV supply chain here in Canada, and the momentum that we've been building. I mean, that was the first battery plant. Volkswagen was the second. Here we have a deal on Volkswagen, and the Stellantis situation is still outstanding. And I have to say, a lot of sleepless nights the last couple of nights trying to make sure that everybody understood the magnitude of this, and that's what we've been doing as a union. I've been burning the phones, speaking to the federal government, everyone from the PMO on down, including and in Ontario with the Premier's office on down, to say, look, this is just too important to not get resolved right now, and too many people and too many workers' futures are tied up into this. And in addition to that, the whole kind of future momentum that we want to see, because we all know that there's more investment to be had, that can place this at risk as well. So it is critical that we get this deal done right now and as quick as possible. My experience with these auto companies, and I have some, we were in 2020 bargaining with them. They're very tough. And I have to say, they don't make threats, they make decisions. And once those decisions are made, it can be really challenging to get them reversed. We all know the Oshawa situation. It was a 3-year campaign there to get that plant back opened. And so this is a crucial point, and everyone's got to focus in. The federal government, provincial government, Stellantis, if they're asking too much, they've got to pare it back. Everyone's got to do what's fair right now and live up to this commitment. I
wonder why you think this is flaring up now, though, Lana. If, as you say, they were kind of in these conversations prior to St. Thomas being done with Volkswagen. And I remember speaking to Minister Champagne the day the Volkswagen deal was announced. He suggested there were conversations happening with Stellantis even back then. Why do you think it's gotten to the point that they've downed tools on the construction today?
They've got to get things moving, David. They need a signed deal. That's their opinion. And the longer this goes on, the more money they're investing down there, and the deal is still not the deal is still not inked. And that's the problem. I mean, we're talking currently millions of dollars have been invested, but they're looking at billions, and they have to make sure that this is going to go ahead. And things have come to a head right now, and it's serious. I can't stress that enough. I mean, we are getting assurances that everyone is on top of this, but the reality is, until that deal is signed, we're in this limbo right now, and the longer it goes on, the more precarious this situation will be.
Okay, so we've seen what the demand is from the federal government, more or less, as some sort of compensation on the back end, a production subsidy of some sort. At least that's what it looks to be on the surface. What's the role here for the provincial government? Because they're kind of saying they're not at the table here, but the federal officials you speak to here in Ottawa say we need the province at the table here too. We need them to do something. What's your understanding of how those negotiations are playing out between those key players?
I think for the province, it's important that they're in here on this deal. The reality is that the provincial government and the province of Ontario is going to benefit greatly from this EV transformation, and they have been supportive of the auto sector. There's no doubt about that. The Ford government has been really keen to make sure that Ontario is part of this transformation. So what I would say is they've just got to keep this going, and all parties, the provincial government, the federal government, and the company have to come together and hammer this out and get a deal. Because there are a lot of people waking up today and over the weekend wondering what their future is, and I would suggest that we need to make sure we're getting this right, not just for them, but for the future momentum that we need to build here. And really, the auto sector is going to be kind of the test for how we transform our economy in terms of how we respond to climate change. And my read of this and what we've been suggesting to governments is that they have to be part of that transformation. You can't just leave this up to the private sector to do as at will. We have to make sure that we're getting what we need and that the economy is being done properly in the future. And that includes having strong industrial strategies like we've been seeing in auto apply to other sectors too. So it's really crucial that we get this right in the auto sector.
So based on the conversations you've had with Stellantis, with the Ontario government, with the federal government, presumably the municipal government, all the players there, what's your sense of how likely a resolution is at this point in time? I mean, is this a knife's edge, or do you think it's just going to take a little bit of time to sort it out and find the compromise?
Well, I have to remain hopeful because, David, there's too much at stake right now. Tens of thousands of jobs, the EV future in Canada. Stellantis has the largest automaking footprint of all the automakers in this country. So there is a lot at stake, and the fact that we still don't have a deal tells me we've had too much of an issue going on there. And the reality is, we can't go on having this in limbo for too long. I would suggest that assurances, as I said, are great. But the reality is people have to get to work and get this done. And I do know from my conversations with everybody this weekend that everybody knows the magnitude of this right now. So my point being, if you know the magnitude, then let's get it done.
Lana Payne, National President of Unifor, thanks for your time.
Thank you, David.
Okay, that's a view of one of Canada's biggest unions. There's also a lot at stake for the community and the local member of parliament. Eric Kuzmierczyk is the Liberal MP for Windsor-Tecumseh, where that plant is being built. Mr. Kuzmierczyk, thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you.
How worried are you right now about the state of this deal?
Well, what I can tell you is this is the most important investment in the history of our community. We're talking thousands of good-paying jobs for auto workers, for our community, spin-off jobs, again, in the thousands. What I can tell you is we will have an agreement, and this battery plant will be built in Windsor.
I just spoke with Lana Payne, the national president from Unifor, and she says Stellantis, who she has bargained with many times, says they don't make threats, they make decisions, and she's very worried about the situation right now. Is her worry unfounded? You seem remarkably calm.
Well, our government has stepped up with unprecedented investment, both in the VW plant in St. Thomas and also the Stellantis LG plant in Windsor. I am confident that absolutely nothing has changed in terms of our commitment, and the battery plants will be built in Windsor and St. Thomas. These are two critically important pieces that will anchor this new industry, this new ecosystem that we are building, this strategy to basically connect the entire supply chain from mining the minerals all the way to building the batteries and assembling the vehicles. And so we know St. Thomas and Windsor are absolutely critical to that strategy, and I am very confident that we will see those batteries plant built in my community and also in St. Thomas.
Both plants may be critical, but St. Thomas has a better deal right now with the production subsidies that match the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. The Windsor plant, Stellantis, do not have that. Is this as simple as giving them the same deal as St. Thomas? Is that where this is going to go?
Well, we had the first agreement last year in March that we all celebrated. We were all on stage and celebrating that deal. But obviously, President Biden introduced the IRA, which really changed the competitive landscape of automotive in North America. And we had to respond to that. And we have. And we will. And so our federal government has stepped forward, again, with historic record investment. But David, this is something that in order to compete with the United States, which is again a $24 trillion behemoth, in order to compete with the United States, we have to make sure that we are all hands on deck. All partners have to be at the table. They have to step up, and they have to lift this together. And that's the only way that we can compete with again, a large economy like the United States.
Right, but the way to compete on battery manufacturing is with production subsidies. That's what had to be done to get Volkswagen to go to St. Thomas. Those are worth anywhere between $8 to $13 billion over the life of the agreement. As I understand it right now, there's no similar arrangement in Stellantis. And I know the agreement was reached prior to the IRA and prior to Volkswagen, but the game has changed. So do you need to change what's on offer?
Well, the game absolutely has changed. And again, President Biden's IRA has changed the competitive landscape. We have to respond. We are. And so this is the second negotiation that we're having, again, with our partners. And again, those partners include, obviously, Stellantis, Unifor. It includes, of course, the province of Ontario.
Well, where are they on this? Because they say they're not at the table. They've been insistent on that, but we heard the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrysler Freeland, saying they need to step up. Is the federal government worried about being the only subsidizer for Stellantis and worried about that becoming the precedent? Is that what's happening here?
Well, again, you have to look at the entire ecosystem. So we're making record unprecedented investments, everything from minerals. We're making investments to the batteries. We're making investments in assembly. We're trying to build the entire supply chain. One level of government cannot do that on its own. It is a team effort. It is a Team Canada effort. Just like in hockey, you need to roll all 4 lines to win a championship. And so again, this is a partnership. And that's why we're having these sometimes difficult conversations, obviously, with all the partners around the table.
But Ontario says they're not at the table. Like they've said that repeatedly today. So help me understand where the provincial government, are you inviting them to the table? Are they at another table where it's just them and the federal government talking? Where are they?
Well, the reality is that if we want to compete with the United States, we really have to have all partners. We have to have an all-hands-on-deck approach. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to compete against what the Americans have put forward. But I also wanted to add as well, too, that our federal government has been making historic investments for years now in climate change, in clean technology. Even in the last budget, we've put $80 billion on the table to bring clean tech to build those new industries and that new sector in this country. And so the federal government absolutely has demonstrated that we are committed, and that hasn't wavered one bit.
Right, but now Stellantis has down tools. And they say they're stopping construction on this critical battery plant, as you call it. So, like, where I have to go back again. Chrysler Freeland and Francois-Philippe Champagne have both said they're talking to the company, but Ontario says they're not there. Where is Ontario? What is your understanding of it? Are you guys trying to drag them to the table? Are they staying away from the table? Are they part of these conversations?
Well, again, this is an important question. And, you know, the last thing that I want to do is I'm not the finger-pointing guy. I'm the one that actually turns to our partners and to say, look, we've got to work together. If we want to get this done, if we really are serious about attracting investment here and securing investment here, we all have to work together, all of us, every level of government and all the stakeholders and partners. And so, you know, that's something that I truly believe in. That's always been the path forward, and that's what I see will get us across the finish line in this situation as well, too.
The knock-on effect of this not going ahead is quite profound, right? Because this is going to make the batteries that's going to feed into the existing plants as they convert over to make electric vehicles. So, I mean, how quickly does this need to be resolved? How quickly do you think your government and whoever else, whether it's Ontario, can get this resolved?
Well, I am heartened that the Prime Minister and Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne are in Korea, and they'll be having high-level discussions with the executives, obviously, of LG. They have been in conversations with Stellantis. They have been having high-level conversations with Premier Doug Ford and Vic Fedeli. And again, I'm very confident that all partners around that table will recognize how important this is. Again, this is the most historic investment really in the history of our community. This is critical not just for our community, but also for Canada and securing this industry in Canada. And I fully expect that all partners around the table will recognize the importance of that.
So Minister Champagne, as I understand it, is in South Korea already,
Yes.
and the Prime Minister is en route.
Yes.
Do you think they can get this resolved while in Korea, while they have these high-level meetings?
Well, obviously, everybody back home wants to see this resolved as soon as possible. And it's not just for, obviously, the battery plant deal, but obviously there are a number of companies that are already looking at investing and building the supply chains in Windsor, Essex, and up and down the 401. And so we want to make sure that we send the right message, again, which is that we are at the table and we will get this done, and a battery plant will be built in Windsor.
Okay, Eric Kuzmarchuk, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much.